Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to the ban list discussion series. This is episode 6, as we continue to make our way through the Forbidden Limited list. I am joined by Ryan. You can find him on YouTube at Mandentertainment. There is a link in the description below to his channel. Show him some love. He's relatively new to the whole thing, but he's got some great content out and more to come. We've been making our way through the list, for those of you that have maybe not seen any of the previous episodes, discussing every card, starting with Astrograph Sorcerer, and obviously going through the whole list in an episodic series and arguing amongst ourselves whether or not we think it could move its current place on the list, if it should stay where it is, so on and so forth. So if you haven't seen the previous episodes, check either the playlist this is in or the description down below for a link, and you can get yourself caught up. But we are going to jump right in. The theme has been that Ryan takes the lead. Brilliant Fusion is the first card up, and obviously this card has been around for a hot minute. Ryan, let us know how you feel about Brilliant Fusion.
So this card sort of functions in the same way that Red Eyes Fusion does, where like you play 2 bricks in your deck, and then you get a really powerful fusion monster. The difference being that Red Eyes Dragoon is way better than Seraphinite.
That's true. Also, just to give you clarity on that, it is a normal or quick play spell, so you cannot use this with Anaconda.
So I honestly, I don't mind this card coming back to 1. Earlier in the series, I talked about how Goblin is if this card had no bricks in your deck and drew you a card. Mm-hmm. Whereas this card kind of gives you a useless fusion monster. Granted, you can link with it, so like getting additional normal summons is an absurdly strong ability. Especially during a format with links. We saw it with Goki abusing Nightmare Goblin. Gem Knight Seraphinite was abused fairly heavily for a long time. I believe this card even went to 1 before it got banned. I could see this card at 1. It requires you to play bricks in your deck, but I'm gonna say I don't want this to come off. Earlier, again, I said that like any card that gives you an additional normal summon is just a little too strong. This one's not excessively strong, but it can kind of combo with other cards where like, you know, Magician's Soul is a pretty good card that can sort of abuse the fact that this exists and other things. So like I want this card to stay at 0.
Alright. I am actually in favor of it being at 1. I almost think it's not even that good at 1 in the sense that for the most part, because it's, you know, when it was at 3, you had a good chance of opening it, and it was worth the bricks to resolve the card. I think at 1, it honestly wouldn't do much. I think that it's a good card, and, like, I don't feel like it ever did anything to warrant a ban. Like, arguably the most broken this card was if you take FTKs out of the equation. Obviously, because there was like some weird Gem Knight FTK or whatever. But if you take that out of the equation, with Pepe, this was insane, right? Because you could like you could send Damage Juggler and guard it, and then you could make Seraph Knight, and you could, I mean, the extension and the play you had access to, you could put a Shockmaster out with ease with that combo. But those cards are not prevalent anymore, at least in the same way that they were. I really don't like have too much to say about this other than I just think it'd be fine at 1. It's relatively harmless. It's a good card. It might boost Gem Knights a little, I guess. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, I don't think it ever deserved a ban, and I think the less cards on the ban list, the better, as long as they're not damaging the game. So I'm fine with it at 1.
Yeah, this one's a weird one for me. I'm super uncomfortable with this card.
Yeah, I guess it always does set up for future. I'm definitely not about letting it go to anything more than 1, because at 3 it becomes a broken engine again. And at 3, I don't know if there's a Gem Knight that needs a Dark Monster, but if there is, because you imagine the Orchist combos and stuff that you could do. I know there's some weird Gem Knights that have specific requirements, but then there's like actually harmless plays, like the Volcanic engine, with like Shell and Garnet, where you could make like, I mean, so I actually like a lot of what this card does in terms of some creativity with lesser decks, but unfortunately it also gives strong power to higher up decks that don't necessarily need it, and you could use this in like Eldritch to send Garnet and Golden Lord, and then you're already like accelerating your plays and combos, because I'm pretty sure Golden Lord could send like this face-up card to the grave to revive itself. So I don't know, I'd have to really think about it, but I'd be okay with 1, I think, and sort of seeing where it goes. Next, Butterfly Dagger. I think this card is really so like this card's only banned in my opinion because Royal Magical Library is not. Like this card would be pretty terrible otherwise. Like it has to be destroyed and such.
No. So this card can't come off the list because it creates it has the potential to create an infinite gameplay loop that can't be interrupted.
With what?
If you attach this to Gearfried the Iron Knight, it'll destroy and then it'll come back to hand and then you can just play it on Gearfried again. And so technically you're advancing the game state, so you can't be called for time, but nothing is happening.
Okay.
That's I think that's why this card stays banned.
I don't
That's
like
not
that.
why it was initially banned. Obviously, it could like infinitely give you draw cards off of
Magical
Magical Library
Yeah.
when you had Gearfried on the board, but
I don't like that.
I don't think this card should ever come off because it's just the way it's designed is poor. It's poorly designed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it had a hard once per turn, it wouldn't matter, right? But then it would be terrible. Well, yeah, it'd be terrible. So
It gives you 300 attack.
yeah, but also the fact that it could like if it's destroyed, you get it back to the hand. Like there might be some combo where you could do it if it was a hard once per turn, where it was like with like the Infernoble Knights or something, like pop an equip spell, do something, and then get it back, but you could only do it once. I mean, it'd be possible, but alright, yeah, we're going to leave it banned because people are scumbags and would abuse a time loop to go to a draw. Courtesy for Turn is one of the most broken cards ever printed. I was fortunate enough to be able to play when this card was at 1, and it was... This card is insanely fun in Zombies. Like, it is beyond just a fun, degenerate, like, you could just keep drawing, you could do all sorts of shit, but I don't even know that we need to talk about this one, because I don't believe... This is one of those cards that I think does not need an errata. Like, I don't want it to get errata. I want it to stay as powerful as people will remember it being, and just sit and be banned and remembered for what it was.
I guess like it's not searchable. As a one-of, you'd like have to hard draw it, but if you hard drew it, then your combos would never end.
Yep, and it's endless resources. And when it was out at first, it wasn't that good because nothing could really special summon from the graveyard. So for a while, it was relatively lackluster. You didn't have Zombie Master, you didn't have Illblood, which were two of the cards that really started to break this, but obviously Mana Core of Darkness came out in Invasion of Chaos, and you could loop Mana Core of Darkness with another copy of itself, and this to draw into Exodia. But that did not get this card banned. It got it limited, and I think it actually got banned in like 2008 or 9, just because it became absurd. You summon Disc Commander with this, and fucking draw 3, and you're just like, okay. And that was like Perfect Circle Monarchs, which to this day is probably one of my favorite decks ever. I don't think you played back then, going back to like 09, 10. But
A little before my time.
with Disc Commander, Light and Darkness Dragon, like Mobius, like that your Disc Commander, I mean, your Light and Darkness Dragon would negate stuff, then it would die. You'd revive the Disc Commander, draw 2, draw 1 off. Like, that was super fun. But it was a very different time, and like... It's easy to look back at that now and be like, oh yeah, that's, you know, that's good. But no, this we talk too much about this one as it is. Alright, Chicken Game. Chicken Game, I'm going to say very briefly on this. I think this card's fine at 3. I think people that don't like it are chickens, I guess. Well, really, it gives you both the ability to do the same thing. I mean, I just think that it's quite literally like an upstart goblin that also benefits your opponent in some ways and gives you the control. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I'd be okay with this card coming back.
Yeah, we're both of the same opinion. I didn't think this card ever needed to get hit. It was like a little annoying to deal with, but it's not like Mystic Mine, where like your opponent plays it and you just sit there, and even though you can technically get out of it, it feels like you can't play. This card was just like both players can play the game.
Yep.
And they can both draw a card.
Or you can pop it.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, or like they can blow it up, or they can force their opponent to not be able to they could force themselves to not be able to take damage underneath the card and stuff like that. So I don't inherently have any problems with this card.
I agree.
I get why. I guess they were probably afraid. It is a pretty decent consistency card, but other than that, I don't have a problem with it. Especially now that Terraforming's at 1 or banned.
Terraforming's at 1.
Yeah,
as it should be. I think all cards that search like that should probably be limited, but...
Yeah, Terraforming being at 1 makes this card even less of a threatening card.
Yeah, people are going to disagree with this take, but I really think the card's fine. Gold Wave, we don't need to discuss this. This basically is like Shockmaster, but better, because you don't even have the risk of putting any resources out. If you go first and play this, there is no card in the game that I'm aware of that your opponent could even play to counter it. So, at least with Shock, you could argue that Gamma or something might shut it off. You play this, and that's it. Your opponent can't play or set spells and traps, and you win. I don't think we need to say too much else about this.
Nope.
No, okay.
Keep it away.
Confiscation, fun card. Back in the day, like, this was a card that, like, at 1 was, like, broken, but, like, you know, discarding's not as, like, it wasn't terribly detrimental. But I think even more than the discard, what's really destructive about this is the knowledge you gain, being able to see the hand and pick the card that they discard, which gives you just such an advantage because knowledge is so important in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, if this card was, like, pay 1,000 life points, your opponent discards one random card, you can only activate one confiscation per turn, I don't think this card would be that bad.
Yeah, so, like, imagine, like, you're playing against Dragon Link, and then they activate confiscation, and they rip your one hand trap, and now you lose.
Yeah.
Because not only do they get rid of your hand trap, they know you don't have any others. Which, so, most decks with, like, competent pilots at, like, higher level gameplay will function in, like, a less than optimal way to play around hand traps. If they know for a fact that you don't have a hand trap, they're just going to put their huge dick on the ground, do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to stop them, and they know you can't stop them. And knowing that you can't be stopped means that you can just do whatever you want, and you can push for the absolute best possible board that you can make with the 4 cards left in your hand, which in current Yu-Gi-Oh! Is probably enough to make, like, 7 negates and set 4 cards with confiscation. Even if you like, especially, so we discussed why Max D was like a sacky card at 1. This would be an excessively sacky card. You'd get hit by this and you'd be like, sweet.
Yep.
Guess I get to sit here for 4
I lose. You lose at that point. Like, if they hit you and you know what they're making, you don't even have it takes away the element of reactive gameplay, which I think is one of the things that differentiates Yu-Gi-Oh! From, like, Pokemon and stuff, where it's like the ability, or at least in theory, when your opponent's not playing something that just shuts you down, the ability to react and determine when the best time to react is and change the flow of a game is completely taken away from you by the knowledge. I really do think them being able to look at the hand and pick the card is what makes this so problematic. Now, transitioning to the Languid Duo, if the Languid Duos only had its first line of text that said pay 1,000 life points, your opponent discards one random card, it would be 1,000 times less broken, in my opinion. You don't get the knowledge. It's random. It's still good, but you're discarding one from your hand, technically, because you're playing this. So you're -1ing yourself, and then your opponent is. So there's no inherent advantage gained that's not RNG. But the fact that this hits a second card just completely changes the tide, because then you're starting the game with 3 cards in your hand, and you're probably going to lose.
Yeah, so, like, a lot of the spells on this banished list actually have... They either 1-for-1 or they better than 1-for-1 for you. So, like, later on this list, a card that we're both going to say isn't going to come off the list ever is Pot of Greed. It gives you a +1.
Yeah.
This card also basically gives you a +1. It's in a very different way, but in terms of advantage, you're up on your opponent. You have 4 cards in your hand, they have 3.
Yeah.
If you play this turn 1.
Agreed.
And that's insane. Like, earlier we said, like, okay, off of 4 or 3 cards, you can usually do whatever the hell you want in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, if you're playing, like, a competent meta deck. But if you only have 3 cards in your hand, back to the confiscation discussion, it's harder to play through stuff and make these, like, big brain plays to play around hand traps if you only have 3 cards in hand. If you have 3 cards in hand, you're like, oh, well, I guess I just have to do what I can and hope that this is enough.
Right. Okay.
And again, this is another card that if it was at 1, it would be like the sackiest thing in existence. Because your opponent would go first, and one of their 5 cards they drew, they'd be like, pay 1,000, activate the Languid Duo, you can't do anything about it?
Yeah. And again, I think if it was pay 1,000, your opponent discards 1 random card, it could be at 1, and probably wouldn't be that good. Or, I mean, it'd be decent, you might play it, but, like, it wouldn't be, like... It would at least be a debate we could have, because I know discarding in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is super uncomfortable for anyone to talk about. That, like, makes their skin crawl, and I get it. But, like, if this effect was quite literally just this first line here, I don't think the card would be anywhere near as bad, because what are you really gaining from that? You in theory, you're like, this card could be something better. It's random. You don't know. So yeah, leave it banned. Iconic card, love it. I don't ever want to see ever want to see this card get an errata. This is another one that I feel super strongly about. Like, I'm not a GOAT fan. I mean, I like the animal, but like, I don't love the format. But I understand, like, this card is so influential on that. I very much don't. This is an important part of Yu-Gi-Oh history. But, yeah, no, especially nowadays, it's way too much advantage. Dimension Fusion, bro. No, this card, I'm not even going to make this, we're just going to say this. This card can be sent by Anaconda and resolved. And I don't think I need to say anything else as to why this card needs to stay banned.
No. So I'm noticing like a lot of these cards where they're like one line of text, but it's the most broken line. There's nothing. You don't need to say anything.
Yeah. About this. Anaconda can send this. You can quite literally do everything. Make Anaconda send this, and then bring everything back, and you're fucking golden. And so that to me is all you need. The one thing I will say is I remember in like 08 when this card was legal, or 08, 09, I used to play like the Evil Hero Dark Gaia Turbo with this, and it was at 1, but you had this in like DMOC. So you'd play, like, Dark Calling and banish it, and then you could special the DMOC back and, like, get a spell back from hand. And so, like, it was some super fun, like, degenerate combos. But, like, I was also, like, 12, or not even, I don't even know. I was younger than that, I think. But, no, like, 12-ish, whatever. And that was, like, I was like, oh, sweet, I get to just throw my hand on the board and do whatever I want. Like, no, this card needs to be banned. Anaconda's existence is all you need, and there's a whole 30 minutes we could spend talking about this card. So, nope. Yeah. We're done.
It's full charge, but better.
Oh, it's infinitely better because it's not a once per turn. It doesn't cancel your battle phase, and it also is literally just this restriction back in the day was like, oh, you're not banishing all that much. Nowadays, you're fucking. I played Dragonity, but you played Dragonity. You use this with that. You basically banish stuff for Armogram and Tempest, and then you just put everything back on the fucking board, and you make another monster. No, this needs to stay. Trinade. No. Right? Okay. I mean, like, I want it because, like, it'd be kind of fun, but, like, no.
The benefit of being able to put your cards back into your hand is too strong. Because, like, let's say you set 4 and you drew Heavy Storm.
Yeah.
You'd have to think twice about activating Heavy Storm.
Mm-hmm. Unless you're playing
Giant Trinade, you're just like, I'm playing Giant Trinade. I'm doing my entire turn, and then I'm just putting the same 4 cards back face down.
Yeah, or you're playing, like, Tenki or Swords of Revealing Light. Well, I mean, like, no one's playing Swords of Revealing Light, you know what I mean? Yeah, or, like, World Legacy Guard Dragon, that's a broken card, and if you could bounce it back to your hand and use it again next turn. And Treasure Map, if it's returned to your hand by a card effect, you can chain it to draw 2 cards. I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff you could use with that. Okay, Graceful Charity is a no, obviously. Another card.
Single line of broken.
Draw 3 cards, discard 2. If this card said draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards, do you think it would change anything in terms of whether or not it could potentially be a...
We've discussed that discarding cards is a good thing now.
Mm-hmm.
I think this card is better than Pot of Greed.
Agreed.
Like, outright just better, because discarding 2 cards is, like, broken. Like, imagine you're playing Phantom Knights, and you just Graceful Charity, and then you discard 2 Phantom Knights that you want on the grave, or you discard 2 traps, and now your combo's been extended by 2 extra plays. Like, and there's far better examples for far better decks that could use this card. Just, think about, Mermail. They have a few cards that are procced by discarding Gun. For example, like, imagine you drew 3 cards, and then because you drew 3 cards, you also get to revive a level 7 from the graveyard. There's a lot of cards like that.
Yeah, and honestly, I say this, I think Dark World would be nutty with this card. I understand Dark World's not doing anything right now, but think about how much more accessible that deck then becomes now if you have access to this. Like Dark World has a lot of cards, and, like, you could argue that it's been outclassed to an extent, but has it? Like, it just doesn't have a full slate of support. If Dark World had access to Charity, like...
Yeah, maybe it'd move up to tier 4.
Yeah, and people forget that deck was a tier 1 deck back in the day. Like, it was. I don't remember if it ever won a YCS, but it definitely topped many. And it was sort of one of those things that was like, once Dark Law came out and you had the banishing stuff, it was like, just it couldn't compete because that deck loses harder to banishing than anything. But, again, I just give Dark, that's one example you think of. You think of Thunder Dragons would benefit from this just by accelerating, filling up the grave. I mean, a billion things. Anything that activates Engrave, resolves Engrave, whatever, is going to get benefits from this, so I'm good. So we're 0 on Charity. Heavy Storm is basically the same thing as Trinade. You can trigger your own cards. Like, the reason that this is banned and Harpy's Feather Duster is not is because Harpy's Feather Duster is, like, solid and all, but like you can combo with this and pop your own stuff. You can pop things that trigger off destruction. You can pop floodgates that you got use out of and no longer need. I mean, that's not as common, but like there's just too good. The fact that it can pop your own stuff severely limits card design in the future on anything that says if this set card is destroyed or if this card does this. Like Unchained would love access to this card. You want to talk about a deck that could be genuinely boosted from that, like set your back row, pop it, special summon 2 Unchained from the deck or whatever. Like it's too abusable.
Yeah, a lot of spells are super easily abused because they can just, while demolishing your opponent's game state, help your game state, and that's just problematic.
Agreed. All right, Zero. I don't think we need to discuss this one too much. This is on the list because of like locks and combo, like basically saying you can't play the game.
I miss this card. But it definitely needs to be banned.
Yeah, it wasn't for a long time. It wasn't necessary, but I think Bujin is what put this over the top.
No, so this got banned fairly recently because there was a way that you can make it that your opponent like couldn't play the game.
Oh yeah, see, locks like that are stupid, and I think that there was a combo with this in like Pineapple Blast back in the day, which is ironic. Like
this card in Bujin like made Bujin kind of fun and playable in like a control-y deck, but like it was still a beatable deck because Bujin wasn't like a super strong deck.
Mm-hmm.
But like now, I can't remember exactly how you do it, but I'm pretty sure the Tyrant Neptune was involved.
I'm very much against combos that are like you can't play. Like I understand I advocated for Shockmaster, but like at least you have a chance. This is different than that and that type of card because this is like you're locking the game. You're like breaking the game, doing something that the cards aren't supposed to do versus resolving an effect, and I don't like that shit. So yeah, no, it's got to stay banned because of what it does. Although it would be really fun to see if with Noble Knights nowadays, which is a deck that's gotten just eons of support over the past like couple of years, and like you just make a big guy and then you put all this stuff and you just Kaiser Coliseum and you can't do much. But yeah, so that's that. Last Will. I almost wanted to make an argument about this card a little while back when we had this discussion for the first time, and then someone pointed out to me the whole link element of it, which I never even really thought about, right? So it was like, there's ways to do it, but the fact that you can now, like, summon a Sangan, link it away into an Almirage, and then play this and grab anything from the deck is really my primary reason why it could never come back. Like, it's interesting. Like, I've never played in a format where this card was legal. I don't remember when it got banned, but it must have been.
There's another, like, thing that maybe people are overlooking, that it doesn't have, like, a level restriction on it.
Oh.
So you could pull, like, any monster with 1500 or less attack.
Mm-hmm. Yubel?
Yeah, that's a prime example.
Well, I just know people like Yubel. I'm just throwing it out there, but is there any?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of like a ton. Like if Spiral Master Plan was legal, like could have gotten Spiral Master Plan.
Yeah,
things like that.
Mm-hmm. But the truth is that again, another thing that just gets better with age. There's no, this isn't even a once per turn. There's no restrictions on. Like, you could literally just play 3 Last Will, and it doesn't fucking matter if you fulfilled the condition once. And basically, it might be one of the most broken cards ever designed, in theory, just when you really look at it. And the more I read it, the more I'm like, what can't you do with this? Like, there's just nothing that I could, like, every deck would benefit from this. Except, like, Eldritch, I guess, because there's, like, literally no valid targets. But, like, somebody would put something in there. You could tutor a Fossil Dyna from the deck with this, can't you? Or, maybe not. I don't know. But either way, we're getting down the rabbit hole. It's banned. Mass Driver's banned because of FTKs. We talked about it in previous videos with Substitoad and Mindmaster, if you want to go back and check those out for full details on this. But we're going to skip over this one entirely because it's just kind of, Metamorphosis. So, super expensive card, wildly popular in GOAT format. If you have this, even like a common, I'm pretty sure it's like a $15 common or something like that. And the super is, it's, I don't know, don't quote me on that price. But super is like 1,000, if not more, from Champion Pack, and this card is one of those commons that, like, think about how this card honestly does deserve a reprint. Just to get my take out there real quick, I do not think this card should come back. I thought for a bit that maybe it could, but as long as Last Warrior of Another Planet exists, it's impossible. So the cheapest listing is $666 because people are edgy. And then the actual cheapest, like, near mint copy of this card for Unlimited is about $16. And First Dead is $25 for Pharaonic Guardian. And the super rare, like I said, is about $2,340. So if you have any supers lying around from Champion Pack 1, you might want to move them. But all jokes aside, it's just, I mean, it's an insane card that, like, I want so badly to be able to be like, yeah, give this another chance. But it can't. Like, too many cards exist, like Exterio and Last Warrior for Another Planet, two that come to mind.
Half the time, getting rid of a monster off your field probably benefits you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, tributing the monster is probably fine. Like, imagine you tributed Master Plan and summon Last Warrior from Another Planet. Again, like, that's just another example. Like, another example why Master Plan is also banned, but...
And this isn't one of those cards where I'd be like, you know, if this came back, like Snatch Steal, I'd be like, oh, that's fun. Like, this is fun. Everything's fun. This card is just... It's not like a broken Saki top deck. It's a disgusting card that basically gives you the ability to access whatever you need, whenever you need it. And it doesn't... It's too much. It's way too much. A retrain would be cool. Not an errata, but a retrain. Maybe a card that's like Tribute 1, Special Summon 1, level 4 or lower, fusion. I mean, level 6 or lower. I don't know. Like, I would love to see this card get like some kind of look. Maybe a retrain. Because it's a cool concept, but yeah, no, it's not. The only unfortunate thing is you can't use Elemental Hero Neo Bubbleman. That card is quite literally unplayable because this card is banned. Which some people don't know, but you have to discard Metamorphosis to special summon Neo Bubbleman from the extra deck, and you cannot do that with this card banned. But do you have anything else to add? I didn't mean to like take over that conversation, but I feel like this card is just... Alright, we're skipping the next one, because I like to build suspense. Painful Choice, yeah, this card is the most broken card ever printed.
This is the contention for the best card ever made.
This downside, quote-unquote, which was barely even a downside back in the day, but, like, maybe when, like, the first 2 or 3 sets came out, I guess it kind of was because, like, you couldn't really get stuff back from the graveyard. But, like, it's just 5 cards. Like, you just pick 5 cards, and you're like, alright, I don't care what my opponent picks, I'm getting all of these in the grave. At worst, it's a 4x Foolish Burial, and that is just... Yeah, exactly. Okay. Good to know. I'm glad we're on the same page with that one. Premature Burial. I remember, like, again, this card was super fun back in the day when it was at 1 and you could play it with DMOC, right? Because you could, like, put DMOC out. And again, I keep going back to those formats because I remember them very fondly, but the game was different. It was in a different place. Like, you could summon DMOC with this, and then when he was special, you could get this back to hand. There were ways to loop it, but not, like, extravagantly, right? But then Brio came out, and Brio was like, lol, you could just endlessly do this. And then the more cards came out that bounce stuff. Zephyros comes out, you can do that. So the fact that it's loopable is just what makes it too bad. Honestly, this card would be fine if it didn't have... If it was just when this card leaves the field, or when the equipped monster leaves the field, destroy this card. Like the same thing Call of the Haunted has and stuff, but it doesn't. And so the fact that you could just endlessly loop it is just way too much.